So we got week one, start of the season. Who's excited? Because I'm so ready for this. A lot of big things I think going into this season that we're going to be looking for is roster improvement. And honestly, there's so many things. But I think there's going to be a lot of competition this season. I think the amount of bad teams are going to be pretty low, but that's just my opinion. And just based off of the rosters and some of the moves that some of these teams have made, I think that this is going to be a very competitive race to the playoffs compared to last season. Last season, everyone kind of knew what teams were going to go in. Now I feel like it's pretty broad, I would say. But either way, let's get into the roster reviews. We're just going to go straight into it. And here we go here. First off, we have the Buffalo Bills. We're going to start with them first. But, the Bills, I think they definitely regressed this particular offseason. And, I don't think they got better. I think they got significantly worse. They obviously have, Josh Allen, still healthy. That's a big plus. But the fact that a lot of their defense is just gone. A lot of their receivers gone. It's like this is technically a rebuild year for them. I don't see them doing that good this year. If they do, they're not going to be a deep playoff team for sure. Right now, obviously, you have Mitchell Trubisky. They signed him, I believe, to an extension for a year or two. You still have James Cook. You got the rookie Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. It's a pretty solid, I'd say, running back core. Depending on what they're going to do, they may on some games bring in, Frank Gore Jr. I think he's on the roster, practice squad. He may go in as a fourth string. It just kind of depends. The receivers, you have Khalil Shakur, Matt Collins, Keon Coleman, Marquez Valdes, Scatling, and Curtis Samuel. These receivers are not completely terrible. I feel like Khalil Shakur as the number one receiver isn't someone that you want for the Bills. He's a solid 2 or 3. Maybe next year, solid 2. And the following year, a 1. I just don't think he's ready for that next step. He could prove me wrong. I don't know. Matt Collins, he's a big receiver. And, maybe that's something that Josh Allen needs. I feel like Josh Allen needs speedsters who are actually good at catching the football. Keon Coleman, I don't see him as anything crazy special. That's just my opinion. Marquez Valdes Scatling, he's another guy. He can stretch the field, but I would say he's pretty inconsistent. And, with the Bills, you don't need inconsistency. And Curtis Samuel. He's pretty decent. He's not someone that, you want as a primary target, but he's a good roster filler, I would say. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, those are really good tight ends, I feel like, for Josh Allen. Good hands, quick tight ends. I don't really view them as good blockers, though. They still have an okay offensive line. I would say it's more athletic. They're more quick offensive line. They're not really strong. They're not like anchors. They're more of on-the-go blocking. Pulling guards, stuff like that. They're not really a passing protection offensive line. I view them more as on the run, faster offensive linemen. So a little bit on the smaller side. For their defense, I don't view this defense as anything special. That's just my opinion. But if you have to have Damar Hamlin as your starting free safety, that's pretty bad. you know, they lost their starting corners and Jordan Poyer. You know, that's 3 starting secondary players. Their whole secondary just got completely depleted. I don't see them containing these receivers in the league. You need to have some top tier guys. And when you get rid of everybody, I mean, I just don't see anything going. You know, I feel like this secondary is just going to get obliterated. And I think this is probably one of the worst secondaries in the league, in my opinion. It's got to be top 3. There's no way. For the defensive line and linebackers, I would say they're pretty average. You have, Ed Oliver. He's pretty good. But, I mean, you still have some gaps. I feel like this defense is just something that, I just don't see this defense strong at all. This, in my opinion, is one of the worst defenses in the league. As something, not even position-wise, just overall, I feel like this is one of the worst defenses. Hey, maybe they prove me wrong. Maybe they become a top 10 defense, but I see this as a top 5 worst defense in the league. Maybe top 10. Top 5 is a little extreme. Top 10 worst, I think. But I feel like just with contracts and just with not the up-to-par guys, this isn't a defense that is going to be putting up numbers, in my opinion. I think this defense is going to put up a lot of surprises and inconsistency. I feel like there's some games where they're going to do really good and some games where they're going to get 400 yards on. You know what I mean? And it doesn't help with Matt Milano being on IR. That's a big downside. But, you still got Tyler Bass. You still have Sam Martin. Top 2 guys in, the kicking and punting department. So at least you have those, when special teams does have to go out there. Next, we got the Miami Dolphins. And, I feel like with this particular team, I feel like with the Dolphins, this is a team that I think has so much potential, but it's getting held back by just unnecessary mistakes and injuries. As of right now, they have Tua, and, it's just up to him. I think this team goes as far as he does, honestly. If he can't be consistent and not force turnovers, this is a top 3 team in the league. Is he able to do that? Me personally, I don't think so. Do I have any hate towards him? No. I hope he does. I honestly hope he is able to do it. But I just don't see it. Outside of that, they have Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, I forgot how to say his name, and the rookie Jalen Wright, and a veteran Jeff Wilson Jr. 4th-string Jeff Wilson, he's not going to get a lot of playing time. I think he's going to get less than a handful of plays a week, and I think he's just going to be a special teamer. I don't see him actually going in on offense. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, I don't know how to say his name. Those are going to be the main 2 guys, I think, going forward. And Jalen Wright, with the rookie, they're going to give him a couple handoffs, couple scenario, I think, options, just because, he's a 3rd stringer. And I think he's a sleeper going forward for this organization. I think he's a very athletic and, Swiss Army knife type of running back. I feel like he has pretty decent hands. He's really fast. He's not really a short running back. I think he's like 5'11", 6 foot. So, he's a pretty bigger type running back. Most of them anywhere from 6 foot to 5'9", typically for running backs. So he's on the above average for the height. But, Raheem Mostert, he's going up there in age. So, for running backs, when you hit 30, you're going to start getting a little bit more wear and tear on your body. I think that's what's going to happen to Raheem Mostert, especially when he's known for his speed and his strength. He may digress a little bit, not to the point where he's just going to completely fall off, but I feel like he's going to definitely digress this season, which may move Jalen Wright, to the first or second. I mean, not to the first string, but I think he'll move him to the second string. Then you have this insane receiving core with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios, Odell Beckham Jr., Malik Washington. These are some great receivers for this type of offense. And I think this is going to be another high-scoring season for the Dolphins, personally. I think this is going to be a fast pace and hard to contain type offense. And I feel like with these, even with the fullback, Alec Ingold, he still has pretty deep, he can catch the football. He is a great blocker. When a team also has a fullback, he can be special teams. He can be on the offense, goal line situations, trick plays. I mean, a very good fullback can be utilized many ways. The tight end, Jonnu Smith, I feel like their tight ends is like the weak point of this offense. I feel like these tight ends aren't that great compared to, other teams. So keep an eye out for that, which is probably why they, overloaded the receiving core. Their offensive line is okay. It's average. There's nothing like standing out. For their defense, I feel like they have a couple of sleepers that were added. One being Calais Campbell. He's going to be a run stopper. I think he was top 3 in the league last year for batted down passes, top 3 or top 5. So keep an eye out for that. And, they have Jordan Poyer. They have Javon Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller. These are some great secondary players. This is going to be a pretty nice secondary. Linebackers, I feel like, are their weakest point here with the middle, and I just don't see them doing much there. For the outside linebackers, I mean, you do have, Bradley Chubb, who is coming off an injury. He may do something, he may not, I don't know, but I feel like their linebackers are their weakest point on this defense. They have Jason Sanders, Jake Bailey as their kicker punter. I mean, they have okay. They're not, top tier guys, but they're pretty solid for their positions. Next, we have the New England Patriots. They have Jacoby Brissett starting for their quarterback position, but this quarterback room, I would say, is pretty talented. You have Drake May, who's arguably top 3 quarterback in this draft. But I think they're going to slowly implement him into the offense. I would say by week 3, he'll be the starter. Jacoby Brissett, tons of experience, tons of different offenses, tons of different head coaches. He's just a more qualified guy at this point. But you definitely want to throw Jake May in, I don't see the Patriots doing anything special. So when they start going like on a downward spiral, throw in Drake May, let him learn, give him an opportunity to help fix the team rather than, put him in when they have a winning record or something and then have him turn it into a losing record. But Joe Milton III, coming out of Tennessee, strong arm quarterback, and, I'm surprised that another team didn't pick him up. And I'm very surprised the Patriots ended up picking him up. But, this quarterback room is very talented, has a lot of potential for the future, I would say. The running backs. I feel like the running backs for this team are a weak point. Well, this whole team in itself is just not great. Rond Moore Stevenson, he's okay. He's more of a guy that you can rely on, but he's not going to do anything flashy. He's not going to surprise you. He's just going to put up some, yards that you want from a running back and some plays that you would want. Antonio Gibson, he's a solid number 2, but I feel like they're not going to be a run-first offense. I feel like they're going to be trying to move the ball down the field. Maybe they are a running offense. I don't know. It's a brand new coach, brand new scheme. Bill Belichick is not there anymore, so who knows how the team's going to go. But the receivers, I would say, definitely is not great. You got Demario Davis as the one. And, you have Kendrick Bourne. He has potential. He does have potential. There's a couple of rookies in this receiving room that, I think will have potential in the future. But I don't see them making an immediate impact, at least year one. You have Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, 2, veteranized tight ends, reliable guys that I think that you want for these young rookies and just for any quarterback. So I would say their tight end core is a little bit underrated, just with the amount of experience that both of these two have had. Offensive line, this is below par, in my opinion, offensive line, and I feel like it needs some work. On the defensive side, man, it's really hard to even name anybody on this defense other than Jabril Peppers. Like, I don't really know anybody on this defense. Like, this defense is brand new. A bunch of young guys. I just don't see this defense doing anything. And a lot of people say that the defense is the strong point for the Patriots. Until I see it, I'm not going to say that. Because, as a football enthusiast, I watch most of the games every week. I can't really name anyone on this defense. That's just truth. Matthew Judon, they ended up trading him. And, they weren't able to land any big free agents. I think this is going to be a really down year for the Patriots defense. People are saying that the defense is the only good part of this team. I don't see that. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. But even with the kicker and the punter, man, I don't really know these guys. But the defense, this team is new. It's a brand new defense. It's a brand new dynamic. Like I said, Bill Belichick's gone. The whole coaching staff is brand new. A lot of young guys, a lot of rookies. This is a brand new team, brand new culture. I don't see them doing anything fancy this year. But I don't also see them being the worst team. Next, we have the New York Jets. Last season, obviously, was a tornado of just random events. Aaron Rodgers, coming back healthy. And, I feel like he has a lot to prove this season. And I feel like he knows that. And I feel like he has to gain the trust and respect from his teammates. And able to shut up his haters. So I would say look out for Aaron Rodgers this season. I feel like he is in discussion for comeback player of the year. Easily. Second string is Tyrod Taylor. I didn't even know he was on the roster until maybe the first or second preseason week. And yeah, so I would say, solid backup, veteran, a little bit still mobile, and able to, not go out there and lose you a game on purpose, which is, what you want from a backup quarterback. Now, this running back core, Breece Hall, he's going to get at least 20 to 30 touches a game. I would say about 22 touches a game he'll average. And, they have a lot of young guys in this running back core. So, I feel like they're all going to be utilized. And I feel like this is going to be a quick, short pass and running back type of offense. For the receivers, you have Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Mike Williams, and Xavier Gibson. This is a pretty solid receiving core. This isn't something, that has inexperience or just, no talent. This is a pretty solid, receiving core. You got veterans, you got young guys. It's a good mix. With the tight ends, you have Tyler Conklin. The other three tight ends, they're pretty much all second, third, and fourth strings. Like, any of those three could be the second string. So it's mainly going to be Tyler Conklin. He's going to be mainly, I think, a blocking tight end. I don't see him going out there and just, being a receiving type tight end. But, yeah. For this offensive line, I feel like it's a pretty solid offensive line. They finally got rid of Michael Beachum. Who's constantly hurt, always, whatever. They replaced him with Tyron Smith. Is he old? Yes. Is he better than Michael Beachum? I think so. But I feel like this offensive line still needs work. I think it still needs work. And, who knows how long Aaron Rodgers is going to play. Is he going to play this season and retire? Is he going to play next season and retire? Is he going to play 3 more seasons and retire? You have to start planning on, the draft. So keep that in mind as well for, an additional QB. For this defense, they have a pretty solid defense, I'd say. This is probably one of the best defenses, I think, in the league. You have, obviously, Sauce Gardner and, what's his name? DJ Reed. These are solid 1-2 corners. Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, they're okay. They're not going to be a top safety duo, but when you have solid corners, it makes the safety job a lot easier. You have Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley. These are solid linebackers, very solid. For the defensive line, I think this is one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. I feel like just with the speed and strength, this is going to have a lot of pressure on a lot of teams. But I feel like this could also be an inconsistent defensive line. They have Greg Zuerlein. I think he's one of the most... he has to be the oldest kicker, or at least top 3. And one of the top punters in the league, Thomas Morstead. This is a pretty solid special teams unit, I would say. But I don't know. This has a lot of things to prove, this Jets team. I think they need to be a 10-plus win team in order to meet expectations around the league. Next, you have the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, you have Lamar Jackson, top QB in the league, top 3. And, coming off an MVP season and a pretty pathetic, I'd say, playoff run. They have a lot to prove this season, and I feel like they're going to be ready for that. And, with the addition of Derrick Henry, this is going to be an extremely dynamic offense, and I feel like, I don't know, this is going to be an insane offense, I feel like, with the addition of him. Obviously, with Justice Hill, you do have, a third down back, but, you also have Zay Flowers, Rashawn Bateman. You have a veteran who's not great, Nelson Aguilar, but I feel like this is a very slept-on offense that a lot of people are not giving a lot of credit for. You do have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. It's a good 1-2 combo. Mark Andrews, kind of an all-around tight end. Isaiah Likely, more of a receiver. Patrick Ricard, also a dynamic fullback. Great offensive line, in my opinion. But this is going to be a scary offense if these guys stay healthy. If these guys start to get injured here and there, I feel like this offense isn't going to put up hardly any points. But if they are able to stay healthy, this is going to be an insanely high-scoring offense. For this defense, It's hard for me to say if this defense is going to be good. I feel like the last couple seasons, the defense for the Ravens has been, pretty good, pretty decent. But this one, I'm not sure. You have Raquan Smith, new addition. I don't know. He was there last year. Either way, this team has a lot of veterans. This defense has a lot of veterans. I feel like they need to just overload the defense next season with defensive players, because this is getting it's an old defense, man. And, you have Marlon Humphrey. He's getting up there in age. And you need to start thinking of some other guys. Corners can last a while, but you also need help. If you're putting him on constant, ones and bigger receivers, like you need to even it out. You do have Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, pretty solid, I'd say, safety unit. You do have Eddie Jackson as well, which I think is a big addition that a lot of people don't realize that the Ravens have. I feel like with all of these guys for this season and maybe next season, this is a solid secondary, but you do need to add one or two young guys within the next year. Kyle Van Noy, same with him. He's really old. You need to start thinking of some younger guys who are good enough to become a starter in the mix. I feel like the interior D-line is their weakest point. Obviously, best kicker in the league, Justin Tucker. Punter, I'm not familiar with this guy, Justin Stout. So I feel like maybe we have to see him, but I'm not really familiar with him. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. We have Joe Burrow coming back, and I think he's going to be kind of on a revenge tour with some additions. I mean, you lose Joe Mixon as your running back one, primary guy, I would say, outside of Jamar Chase. So you have Zach Moss, you have Chase Brown. I say that's a solid 1-2 punch. I feel like they're going to get equal reps. I feel like Zach Moss is going to get maybe 60-70% of the reps. But Chase Brown, he's right there. It's a solid 1-2 back system. I kind of like that. You have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I don't know how to say that third stringer's name, Andre, whatever his name is. I think with these three guys, this is a pretty solid, receiving core if these guys stay healthy. Along with Jermaine Burton, I feel like he's going to be pretty decent as well. But yeah, Mike Gesicki, Drew Sample, these are, same thing. Veteranized tight ends. I like this tight end group. I feel like this is a very underrated room for the receiving core. Orlando Brown, I feel like, is their top guy. And, their offensive line has improved, but I still don't think it's up there as, where it needs to be for when you have a franchise guy like Joe Burrow, you need franchise offensive linemen as well. And I feel like they just don't really have that yet. With their defense, I feel like this is a pretty solid defense. Nothing crazy. But they do have great interior defensive linemen with B.J. Hill and, Sheldon Rankins. This is a pretty solid interior D-line for, stopping the run. They have Von Bell, and they have, a lot of young guys. I don't really see this particular secondary being special. I feel like that is their weakest point. They do have Mike Hilton, as the nickel corner. Dax Hill, Von Bell, Cam Taylor, Britt. I mean, this is just a pretty average to slightly below average secondary. Not the worst, but definitely needs improvement. This defense is going to base on itself on a lot of zone, I think. So a lot of teams with great running games, I feel like they're going to expose this defense. Evan McPherson, one of the top kickers in the league. I'm not familiar with this particular punter. He may just be there at the moment, but yeah. This is going to be a team that really relies on its offense to put up a lot of points so that the defense doesn't have to, carry the workload here. Next, we have the Cleveland Browns. We have Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston. I think this is a solid quarterback room. And with this running back core, you have Jerome Ford, who's going to get a majority of this touches, when it comes to, I shouldn't say that with the Browns, majority of the handoffs for the Browns. They also have Nick Chubb. He's going to, I believe, I'm not sure if he's starting on IR. I think he is. So the first 4 games, he's not going to be active. Once he gets healthy after that 5th week, maybe 6, 6 or 7, he's going to be the same Nick Chubb, I think. This is a solid, very solid running back core. I think this is going to be the primary source of this offense. They do have Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. I feel like with this particular receiving core, this is a lot of like speed, slants, outs. There's nothing really deep routes. This is a very chunk play, keep the chains moving type of offense. And that's going to be a kind of boring offense to watch, but I feel like it can be effective. This whole offense is not going to work as long as Deshaun Watson doesn't put up good passing numbers and passing stats. This is one of the best offensive line groups in the NFL as well. So you do have David Njoku and Jordan Atkins, pretty solid tight end group as well. But I think this offense, outside of the quarterback, this is a solid offense. You put almost any other quarterback in this offense, man, this could be a scary, high-scoring offense. But that can be if Deshaun Watson, actually plays like he did when he was with the Texans. For their defense, Myles Garrett. Year in and year out, he's up there for Defensive Player of the Year. You do have Dalvin Thompson, Shelby Harris. These are great interior defensive linemen. Great defensive interior linemen. You got Zadarius Smith as well. This is a solid defensive line. Like, this is a scary defensive line that I think is going to get active and hard to contain. But, man, this is a scary defensive line. Keep that in mind when you're watching the Browns. This defensive line, I think, is the star of this team. You also have Jordan Hicks. I mean, this is a loaded defense. People don't realize this defense is solid for the Browns. You do have Denzel Ward as well, one of the best corners in the game, along with Martin Emerson Jr., solid corner. This is a solid team, man. Very solid. I see this team doing really great as long as they get efficient quarterback play. You do have Dustin Hopkins as well. One of the top kickers in the league, and I think one of the best punters in the league, in Corey, Hispanic name. I think that's going to be a solid punter. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very strange team with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I mean, these are 2 quarterbacks you don't really want starting for your team. You have Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Cordell Patterson. You don't really know how this running backs room is going to go. You have George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin. This is one of the worst receiving cores, I think, in this in the league. This is one of the worst. I don't see anything positive about this offense personally. I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and I think this team is not going to win more than 7 games. If they do, wow. You know what I mean? Like, shout out to them. I just don't see them doing great at all. TJ Watt is going to have to put the team on his back. He really does. Patrick Queen, same with him. There's a lot of small things on this team that you can look forward to. Joey Porter Jr., Minkah Fitzpatrick, Dante Johnson. These are, solid pieces. I think this team in general is just not great. You have Chris Boswell. You have an okay kicker. Cameron Johnson, okay punter. But I feel like this team is just not complete. This is a rebuilding stage. After this season, I think there's going to be a lot of clean house. Next, we have the Houston Texans. One of the most fun, I'd say, teams to start watching. You do have CJ Stroud. Davis Mills just signed an extension. Case Keenum, I think this is his last year. He's starting on IR, so he's not even going to be active the first 4 years. Not really sure why they're keeping 3 quarterbacks. But, yeah. They have Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, and Cam Akers. I think he's supposed to be a third string. I think they're going to move that. But, yeah, this is a solid running back core and the best receiving core in the league. You have Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Robert Woods with the veteranism. This is an insanely good receiving core. Not to mention you have Dalton Schultz. I mean, this is a pretty scary, high-powered offense. You have Laremy Tunsil, Shaq Mason, Titus Howard. You have 3 solid offensive linemen. This is a very scary offense, one of the best offenses in the league. And don't be surprised, if they start putting up insane numbers, because this is going to be you have Joe Mixon. People don't realize Joe Mixon is a great receiving back and a great power back. I mean, this is an insane, type of team. Dameon Pierce, he's not crazy athletic. He's not crazy great, but he's a solid running back too. Cam Akers, same with him. This is a solid offense, man. Really good offense, and it's going to be fun to watch this. You have Will Anderson as well, Derek Barnett, what's his name? Danielle Hunter. This is a solid defensive line, I'd say. I feel like the outside of this, I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name. The Aziz. I feel like outside of him, I don't really see them having a solid linebacker core. But I mean, him alone can do pretty much it all. And a lot of these other guys, solid backups. You have Derek Stingley Jr. You have Miles Bryant, Jimmy Ward, and people don't realize there's Jeff Okudah back there. Sleeper corner. And I mean, this is an all-around great team for the future. As long as they can maintain some of these contracts, this is scary. You got Fairbairn still, Tommy Townsend. These are solid, kicker punter duos. This is one of the best teams in the league, roster-wise. Next, we have the Colts. We have Anthony Richardson coming back. Joe Flacco is the backup, and Sam Ehlinger, young guy, still trying to move his way up the depth chart from Texas. And this is a solid, I think, quarterback room. As much as people like to hate on this, I think that's a solid, quarterback room. You have Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Sermon, Tyler Goodson. This is a solid running back core. There's no bad dudes. This is a solid 1, 2, 3. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell. This is a solid young receiving core that I feel like Anthony Richardson is going to be able to utilize and gain chemistry with. Tight end wise, this is definitely one of the worst in the league, I feel like, in the room. But it does have It's not really a priority for them at this point. Next season is going to be, I think they're going to add a playmaker, whether it be in the draft or just in, free agency. One of the top offensive lines in the league, year in, year out, no surprise there. I don't see the offensive line falling off. With this defense, though, you have DeForest Buckner, and where's the other guy? I always forget his name. Am I not seeing it? Was it Quid Pay? I can't remember. There's another guy. Top two, on this team for the defense. I feel like the defensive line is going to put up some pressure. I don't see them doing anything crazy, though. This isn't one of the best defenses in the league. But it does have some promising, pieces. But it's definitely... There's a rookie. I forgot what his name is. There's a rookie somewhere on the defense. It's one of the edge rushers or something. He's going to be really good. But this team has a lot to work for. I feel like the offense is pretty much set. It's just they got to focus on the defense next season and this offseason. They have Matt Gay and Rigoberto Sanchez. This is one of the strongest legs in the league for punting. I was watching... If you watch the preseason game against the Broncos that he kicked like almost an 80-yard punt indoors. So, this guy has a leg. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, solid quarterback room. You have Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, solid 1-2. You have Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., pretty solid. They also have some rookies. I feel like this is a very promising receiving core. They have Evan Ingram. I was one of the biggest Evan Ingram haters, and I'm so glad he developed because I feel proud to say, I enjoy watching Evan Ingram now. I really do. This is a pretty mediocre, I'd say, offensive line. Needs work. I don't see it being one of the worst, but it definitely needs work. There's no solidified guys, For the defensive line, you have Eric Armstead, Devon Hamilton. These are solid interior D linemen. Solid edge rushers, I say, with Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen. And this is a pretty solid defensive line. I feel like it starts to degress, though, past that. I don't really see them having great corners or linebackers, who play the pass. But, maybe they prove me wrong. I don't know. I just don't really see it personally. They have Cam Little, Logan Cook. I don't really know too much about these guys, but this isn't a deep playoff team. Can they make the playoffs? I think they could, but will they do anything? Nah. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans. We have Will Levis. I feel like he has a lot to prove this season, along with Mason Rudolph. I would say not really a great quarterback room, but Will Levis, I think, has the potential to be a great quarterback with the right coaching, with the right weapons. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, I feel like is a solid 1-2 back. Tajay Spears, I think, is gonna win out Tony Pollard by the end of the season. That's just my opinion. You do have Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd. These are solid 3 veteran receivers that you want to give a younger quarterback. Veteranized, but they're still useful, But they also have some young guys, Treylon Burks, and Colton Dowell. These are some solid, solid young guys, for a younger quarterback to build around, and also for them to learn, under these veteran receivers. But, yeah. This offensive line, I say, is average. It's nothing special. I don't see it, really doing anything deep. But they do have Lloyd Cushenberry. He was the center for the Broncos last season, the previous years. Pretty solid, I'd say. But, outside of this particular offensive line, I don't see it doing too much. I feel like a lot of these guys are not going to be solidified outside of Lloyd Cushenberry. With this defense, I don't see it being crazy good as well. I feel like this is going to be a big downside to this Titans rebuilding and, program building. This is something that they need to hopefully do good. This secondary is pretty good. You have Amani Hooker, Quandre Diggs, L'Jarius Sneed, and Awuzie. This is a solid, secondary. It's just there's the linebackers and defense line is just not there. I don't see them being a big factor personally. That's just my opinion though. Jeffrey Simmons is good, but I just don't really see it. But the secondary, it's kind of slept on. You also have Nick Folk. He's all right, but Ryan Stonehouse, I'm not really familiar with him. AFC South, man, they got some competition. So I'm not going to go over the Broncos up until that's going to be my last team I'm going to go over. So we're starting the AFC West with Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz as the quarterbacks. Obviously, there's not really much to go off of there. I mean, you know what Patrick Mahomes is going to do. Carson Wentz is a solid backup, though, I think. You have Isaiah Pacheco, Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on IR for PTSD from something that happened where I think he killed somebody in self-defense or something like that. So pretty insane. But yeah, he's going to be out for the first 4 games due to that. But this receiving core, this is a scary receiving core. I'm not really sure, like I said, how the league let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. The Chiefs were openly saying, we want Xavier Worthy if he's there in the first round. And it's like the league just handed them Xavier Worthy. And it's a shame because I was a big fan of him up until this point. Rasheed Rice, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, McCole Hardman. This is a solid receiving core, and I hate to say it. Not to mention Travis Kelce, him just jogging his routes on trick plays, getting wide open. Solid offensive line. It feels like anything they put in front of Mahomes is going to do good outside of that Super Bowl. George Karlaftis and Derek Nottie. I mean, with Chris Jones, this is a solid defense, I'd say. But I think the linebackers, outside of Drew Tranquil, this is a pretty bad linebacking core. Trent McDuffie, Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Joshua Williams, Chamari Connor. I feel like this is a average secondary. I don't think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I don't. I know I said that last year, year before that. But I feel like with this, there's actually a lot of more competition in the league now. Like, a lot of people are figuring out the Chiefs, I feel like, this time. The Chiefs, they didn't win the Super Bowl last year. They did. But you know how many games they could have lost last year? And they barely won. They almost didn't make the playoffs. If you look at some of these games, they were one-score possessions, one determining factor. They were very close to not even making the playoffs. But I don't see them winning the Super Bowl this year. I just don't see that. Harrison Buckner, one of the best, and Matt Ariza, the Bills ex-punter. Who knows? This is going to be obviously a playoff team, but I really hope some teams can, actually beat the Chiefs and put them in a corner. You know what I mean? All I can say is this offense is speed, speed, speed. Next, we have the Raiders. I feel like this is one of the worst teams in the league, personally. You have Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. This was neck and neck, in the quarterback battle. Gardner Minshew barely won it, I feel like. You have Zamir White, Alexander Madison, Amir Abdullah. This is going to be a rotating, I think, running back core. You have Devontae Adams, Jacoby Meyer, and that's pretty much it. Like, this receiving core is not great outside of that. This tight end group, though, you have Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers, Harrison Bryant. They should just put 2 tight ends at all times. 2 tight ends, put Devontae Adams and Jacoby Meyer, because this is a really, really good tight end group. Offensive line, I feel like the Raiders always have great offensive linemen, so it doesn't really matter who you put there. Max Crosby, I feel like him and Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and Nick Bosa. Those are the top 4 guys, rushing the passer. Christian Wilkins, this is a big, defensive line. I feel like this is going to be a solid defense against the run, but this is where you get them. This secondary is bad. It's very bad. I don't see them containing even some of the worst offenses. This is a really bad secondary. It's going to get exposed quick, and it's going to be a main priority for them in the future. Keep in mind, though, they missed out. The Raiders were going for a brand new quarterback. They were going to go for a brand new scheme, and they missed the opportunity. That's what ultimately got them into this point. So this year is almost like a wasted year. But I don't see them doing anything. I feel like they're going to be the bottom of the division, personally. Next, we have the Chargers. Justin Herbert, Taylor Heineke. Pretty solid, I'd say, quarterback room. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and I don't know how to say that guy's name, but Vidal. Rookie, pretty solid, I say, running back room. Joshua Palmer, DJ Chark Jr., Lad McConkey, with Quentin Johnson. This is a pretty solid receiving core. You have Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst. I don't trust this tight end group. I was a big Will Dissly supporter, but he time and time again has let me down in terms of production. He had so much potential. I feel like one of the most slept on tight ends, and he was getting injury, and it just let him develop slowly. In my eyes, this is like a year 2 Will Dissly. He's been injured that much. Joe Alt, they have that franchise right tackle. Outside of that, I don't see this as a good offensive line. You have Morgan Fox and Poona Ford, Joey Bosa. Outside of that, I don't see any big... Oh, and Khalil Mack. Can't forget about Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, I feel like they're going to get moved. They're going to move on from these 2 dudes probably after this season. Unless Joey Bosa signed an extension, I don't remember. These 2 guys need to move on to different teams, and they need to start assembling some younger guys, because these are old edge rushers that you're relying on. You have Asante Samuel, Derwin James Jr., and Kristen Fulton. Solid, but I feel like Asante Samuel and Derwin James Jr. both have big inconsistencies. Cameron Dicker, one of the best kickers in the league. J.K. Scott as the punter. This team under, is it Jim or John? I don't know. Has potential. This has a potential to be a great team. It's just a matter of can they execute it. Next we have the Cowboys. We have Dak Prescott, Cooper Kupp, and Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is not a great quarterback. I feel like he was a flop, and I feel like people are still trying to develop him into being something that he can't. I'm not a big Trey Lance supporter. I feel like he is not a good quarterback. I just don't. So I feel like the Cowboys are wasting a roster spot with him. That's just my opinion. I feel like if you put him on the practice squad, he's not going to get picked up. Me personally. You do have Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn. This whole depth chart is wrong. Rico Dowdle is going to be running back 1. Ezekiel Elliott, running back 2. Deuce Vaughn is running back 3. Dalvin Cook is on the practice squad. So, yeah. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, solid 1-2. Jalen Tolbert, I think, is pretty solid as well. Jake Ferguson, one of the best tight ends in the league, with a pretty solid offensive line. The Cowboys, it's hard to say. They're going to either do really good, choke in the playoffs, in the wild card, or do really bad the whole year. That's pretty much the Cowboys, what they're going to do. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, still solid. They have a pretty solid, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, solid DNs, and pretty good defensive line. No linebackers, in my opinion, are good on this team. And, you have Trayvon Diggs, who in itself is honestly not that great. He's pretty good, but he's not that great. You have Malik Hooker. This secondary and linebacking core, in my opinion, is not it. This is not it. Brandon Aubrey, pretty solid kicker. Brian Anger, also a solid punter. But the Cowboys, man, this defense is going to be why they lose games. Or if Dak Prescott plays bad. The New York Giants, man. In my opinion, this is one of the worst teams in the league. You got Daniel Jones, very inconsistent. I'm a big Daniel Jones supporter. I really hope he proves everyone wrong this upcoming season. But until the season starts, can't really say nothing. They got Drew Lock, who's going to be out, I would say, for the first couple weeks. And then you got Tommy DeVito. Solid backups. I'd say solid backups. You got Devin Singletary. He's pretty much the only running back who's going to be in this room, who's going to be able to put up solid numbers. Malik Neighbor, Wendell Robinson, Darius Slayton, solid 1-2-3, along with some younger guys, but this team just has so much to prove, and with the below average offensive line, that's hard to do when you have to give Daniel Jones a lot of time. They have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, but pretty much outside of those two guys, this defense is going to be one of the worst in the league. I don't see this defense doing anything special. I feel like this defense is very This defense just doesn't have a lot of talent. It just doesn't. This roster honestly doesn't have crazy amount of talent. There's pieces, They got pieces. But these pieces have to rely on other people. And that's hard. That's hard to do. They have Graham Gano. I'm not familiar with this punter, but yeah, man, this team is going to be one of the worst teams in the league, in my opinion. Next, we have the Eagles. We got Jalen Hurts. I'm not even going to mention the second, third string. If Jalen Hurts gets hurt, this season's over for the Eagles. Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Gainwell, Will Shipley. pretty solid running back core. Saquon, coming off of, injury, but also coming back against a division rival with something to prove. I feel like Saquon is going to be one of the best running backs in this season if he stays healthy. You also have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Juwan Johnson. This is a pretty solid, receiving core. Dallas Goedert, pretty solid as well. And a pretty great offensive line. This is going to be the same as last year, I think, in production-wise. So keep in mind they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. I would say with this particular defense as well, this is also, pretty solid. I feel like they finally have been adding pieces to the secondary. They C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay Jr., Reed Blankenship. They're trying to add some guys there. They also have Josh Sweat. But this team needs some run stoppers. Like, they need some run stoppers. And that's where they have this ginormous defensive line. And that's where it needs to stop. When your secondary and linebacking core is not that strong, having a big defensive line that can bat down passes and stop the run, you need that. And I feel like the Eagles, they do have that. Jake Elliott, one of the best in the league. Not really familiar with this punter. But, keep that in mind. Eagles are going to be one of the best in the league, in my opinion. Do I have them winning the Super Bowl? No, not at all. But, they are going to be one of the best. Next, we have the Washington Commanders. We have Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, and Jeff Driscoll. A lot of randomness, I would say, in that room. But Jaden Daniels obviously is the most obvious pick that you're going to put for the starter. They have Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler. I feel like they're going to share equal amounts as the 1-2. Terry McLaurin, and I'm not even going to try that name, and Noah Brown. These are going to be the top three guys. You do have Zach Ertz, but then you also have rookies that I feel like they're going to move past him in the depth chart. This offense is not going to put up crazy numbers, I think. If they do, it's not going to be on a consistent basis. The defense, they have Darren Payne, Jonathan Allen, Dorrance Armstrong, Bobby Wagner. They have some pieces, Jeremy Chin as well. This defense has pieces. If they can do it consistently, I feel like this can be a great defense. But, man, it's just too hard to tell without seeing at least half a season of them. But they either are going to be a solid average defense, slightly above average, or they're going to be a below average defense. But I don't see them as the worst defense in the league. Next, we have Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. This receiving core and offense is, I think, is going to be one of the best in the league. You have DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert. These are a solid 1-2. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I have never been able to pronounce his name. As the 3. Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Mercedes Lewis. You got veteran guys, young guys. And this is just a great, all the starters on this offense are really great. And I feel like this team has a lot of potential. It really does. Their defense, slowly rebuilding that. They do have Tremaine Edmonds, great run stopper, tackler, and just a great linebacker in general. You have Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker, solid edge rusher. A lot of people don't know him. Solid edge rusher. And, like I said, it's a work in progress. It is. But in time, this is going to be a great roster down the stretch. But I feel like this defense just has too many missing pieces for them to go deep. And I don't have them winning more than, 9 games this season. due to the defense. But if this offense puts up crazy numbers, I have them winning 11 games. Next, we have one of the most fun teams to watch with the Detroit Lions. You got Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Craig Reynolds, solid running back core. You have Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, Traquan Smith, Isaiah Williams. Pretty solid, not insanely great, but pretty solid offense. Sam Laporta, one of the best tight ends in the league, and a pretty solid offensive line. This team, I think, is so greatly coached that it doesn't really matter who you put on this offense. They're going to be solid. You know what I mean? And that's a shout out to the offensive coaches there. Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, and Marcus Davenport. Pretty solid D-line. You got Alex Anzalone, pretty good linebacker, kind of do it all, along with Derek Barnes. But I feel like the secondary is its weak point. So keep that in mind against the more speedy teams in the league. I feel like the Lions are going to, they're not going to benefit from that for sure. So I think that's the only downside to this team is that secondary. Let's see if they can hold up, though. If so, this team is going to go deep in the playoffs. Forgot to mention, they do have Jake Bates. Not familiar with Jack Fox. I'm not sure if they're going to put Michael Badgley back in as the starting kicker after he's off of IR. But keep that in mind as well. There could be a kicker discussion. Next, we have the Green Bay Packers. A lot of people have this team as a top team in the league. And me personally, I just don't see it. I just don't. They have Jordan Love. I feel like if he does good this season, then, I'll put them as one of the top teams in the league. But I feel like, him being a full starting rookie, not rookie, but had a full year of him starting, kind of gives him, a little bit more of a test this season. And I want to see if he's able to, replicate that in back-to-back. Because he had a great season last year, in my opinion. For the most part, he did. You have Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Floyd, Emmanuel Wilson. A.J. Dillon's not going to play this year, but I think this is a pretty solid 1-2-3 back. You have Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. Pretty solid options for the receiving core. You have Luke Musgrave as the tight end and Tucker Kraft. I feel like their tight ends are not great. Offensive line is average at best. Along with their defense, I feel like their defense has a lot of random pieces. You have Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, really great. Rashawn Gary, TJ Slayton, Quay Walker, Eric Wilson. Isaiah McDuffie is a good linebacker. Jair Alexander, solid, one of the best corners in the league. Xavier McKinney. But I don't really have them. It's just pieces, like one good D lineman, one good edge rusher, one good linebacker. It's like one of each. So it's like it's hard to say how consistent this depth chart is for them, but they could be very solid. Not familiar with any of these kickers or punters, so maybe they're on the team last year. I don't know, but yeah, they may do good, they may not. Next, we have one of the strangest teams this offseason with the Vikings. Everyone had J.J. McCarthy as the starting, He ends up getting on IR for the year, so Sam Darnold is going to take the reins along with Nick Mullins. And I'm not really sure how Brett Rippon is Brett Rippon's new, I guess, to the team, but I think he would be the backup 2 over Nick Mullins. I don't see how Nick Mullins can beat out Brett Rippon. Just doesn't make sense to me. They do have Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler as the only running backs right now. I feel like that's going to change pretty soon. But then, you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, These are pretty solid options, but you have Sam Darnold as your quarterback. So until he shows me something, this isn't going to be a high efficient offense. TJ Hawkinson is going to be coming into the season, I would say maybe a third of the way into it, just recovering from that ACL injury. This offensive line, average at best, nothing crazy, but honestly, this team is very strange. I don't see this team doing great. I feel like this defense is missing pieces, and I feel like they're not going to be able to contain the run. They have a okay, linebacker, corner, and, safety room, but I feel like that D-line is just going to get obliterated, if Harrison Phillips isn't going to carry this entire defensive line. I don't know. I just don't see this as a top-tier D-line. Not familiar with the kicker and punter, but I guess we'll see how they do as well. Next, we have the Falcons. We have Kirk Cousins as the starter, Michael Penix Jr. as the backup. I feel like that may change towards the end of the season if this team is not winning games. Pretty solid running back core with Bijan, Tyler Algier. Pretty solid 1-2 there. You have Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, and Kyle Pitts. I think this is a pretty solid, nothing, it's average. It's not going to be insane numbers, but it's also not going to be, below average. I think it's just going to be straight average in terms of production. The offensive line, I would say, is a little bit below average, though. For the defense, here's where things get a little interesting. You got Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, and D. Alford. This secondary, I think, is going to be pretty good, in terms of anything in the zone. This is going to be insane. Along with Matthew Judon, he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to come in fired up. And, they have Grady Jarrett as well. So I think this is going to be a pretty solid defense. But it could very much be a flop. Because it's a lot of new guys, a lot of new personnel, and, a lot of learning. It's a big learning curve. You have Young Hoku, one of the best kickers in the league, and I'm not familiar with the punter, but, we'll see how he does. This team has potential, man. Has potential in the long run. Kirk Cousins, what Kirk Cousins is going to do. He's going to give you a bunch of yards. He's going to give you some really pathetic plays. And let's just hope he plays at noon every Sunday. Then we have the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. Pretty solid 1-2. Bryce Young, he has a lot to prove, honestly, this season. So we'll see where he's at, if he's developed at all. They do have Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, Raheem Blackshear, and then Jonathan Brooks is going to come in week 5. He's on IR right now. For the receivers, we have Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, Xavier Legette, and David Moore. Not terrible. Not insanely great either. So we will see how this offense does. I would say this offensive line is, still not where it needs to be. It did improve from last year, but it's not going to be anything significant. For this defense, they lost a lot of guys. The only people that are really staying is Shaq Thompson and J.C. Horn. They did add Josie Jewell, solid run stopper linebacker. They do have Jadeveon Clowney, which is, I think, a pretty big deal. Derek Brown, he's pretty good as well. Jordan Fuller, Xavier Woods. this isn't a terrible defense. It's just a matter of this team is so brand new and just has so much to prove. Eddie Pinheiro, not a great kicker, and Johnny Hecker, okay punter. But I don't see this team doing as bad as they did last year, but I don't have them doing anything special. Next, we have the Saints. We have Derek Carr as the starter. Pretty trash quarterback room, in my opinion. Running back room is actually pretty decent, though. They have Alvin Kamara coming back, Jamal Williams, Jordan Mims. Pretty solid, I would say. With the receivers, they have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, AJ Taylor, Cedric Wilson. I mean, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing crazy. I don't even know what happened to Michael Thomas. He's suspended, but then he's like, I don't know. Pretty strange situation for that. Tight ends, I mean, Jawan Johnson, not that great. Taysom Hill, he's going to play everywhere, obviously, and I would say this is a pretty okay offensive line. It's not anything, to brag about. They still have Cameron Jordan, but I feel like this defense, outside of, Cameron Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, and Marshawn Lattimore, this isn't, a good defense, in my opinion. I feel like this is going to be a pretty below-average defense, and I just don't see it going past anything, stat-wise. I feel like this is a below-average defense for sure. Blake Group and Matthew Hayball, not familiar with either of these guys. I don't see the Saints doing anything special this season unless miraculously Derek Carr plays out of his mind. Next, we have the Buccaneers. We have Baker Mayfield coming back off of a pretty strong season, I say, with the Bucs. So let's see if he can replicate that in back-to-back seasons. They do have Rashad White and Bucky Irving. Those are going to be the two main guys that are going to be getting the football in the running back room. I don't see Sean Tucker or Chase Edmonds getting it pretty much ever. They do have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillian, and Trey Palmer, Cameron Johnson. It's a pretty tight receiving room. It was pretty close on who was going to get that receiver 3 position. Tight ends, I don't see this being a good tight end room at all. Offensive line, I say, is a little bit above average, I'd say. So keep that in mind as well. With the, let me get this here actually. With this defense, you have Villa just locking down the interior D-line. But pretty much outside of that, and Levante David, some people in the secondary, this is a pretty below average defense, and I don't see them being crazy efficient, but they could easily prove me wrong. I just personally don't see anything special about this defense, in the long run. Like I said, there's pieces, but you need a lot of depth for a defense to do really good. Chase McLaughlin, not familiar with him, or Jake Camarda. So we'll see how they do. But I would say this team is going to be average, nothing special in the long run. Next, we have the Cardinals. We have Kyler Murray coming back from injury, seeing if he can prove his haters wrong. And honestly, I'm not really sure how the Cardinals are going to do. This is a pretty strange team. They have James Conner, Trey Benson, pretty solid 1-2 back. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Chris Moore, Zach Pascal, Zay Jones. He's suspended though. This receiving core is pretty mid, honestly. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., there's a lot of people that definitely need to prove themselves here. Trey McBride, he's okay. This offense is just not, filled with a lot of talent and doesn't have a great coach. Now, I will say this defense has missing pieces all over. Bilal Nichols and Buda Baker and Sean Murphy Bunting are pretty much the only stars on this defense. This defense is very lackluster, I say, in talent, and has a lot to prove. But, they are in rebuild stage, so that makes sense. But either way, we'll see how they do. But this depth on this team is not good. I believe they went 0-3. Yeah, they went 0-3 in the preseason. They don't have a lot of depth on this team. Matt Prater, somehow still in the league, super old, still okay, but, like I said, man, this team is just not there with talent. Next, we have the Rams with Matthew Stafford. There's also Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. This running back core is going to be kind of a free-for-all, and I feel like everyone's going to be getting the rock at some point. They do have Cooper, Kupp, Puka, Demarcus Robinson, pretty solid 1-2-3 there, and Colby Parkinson, pretty average tight end. This offensive line, I would say, is a little bit below average, so keep that in mind. For the defense, this is also a rebuilding team, so I feel like there's a lot of randomness. There's also, who knows? There's Kobe Durant, Tre'Davious White, pretty solid corners, John Johnson, and that's pretty much it, for the secondary. But outside of the secondary, I don't have anyone being crazy efficient on this defense. Maybe Bobby Brown, but yeah, this team is not well rostered. They're still in probably cap hell at this point, but I don't see the Rams doing anything special this season. I feel like this is also going to be Matthew Stafford's last year with the Rams. I feel like they're going to definitely go for a quarterback. Maybe run a year with this rookie. Technically, he didn't play last year, so he's a rookie right now, coming out of Georgia. So we'll see how they do. Next, we have the 49ers. They have Brock Purdy, obviously. Joshua Dobbs, I'm not sure how he's not second string, but yeah, they have him as third. Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason. Outside of Christian McCaffrey, pretty much all the running backs are the second string. They're going to be moved around like crazy. They do have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings coming back, George Kittle as well, Kyle Juszczyk. This is going to be pretty much the exact same offense. Not really changing much. And, typically when you do that, you gain more chemistry with it. So I feel like this offense is going to be a little bit more efficient than it was last year if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. For the defense, you got Leonard Floyd, Malik Collins, Javon Havgrave, Nick Bosa, obviously the main guy on their defense, Devondre Campbell, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. These are some solid linebackers. I feel like this secondary is definitely one of the worst in the league. I don't see them outside of Tre'Davious Ward. There's nobody, So keep that in mind against the speedier teams in the league. I feel like they're going to definitely expose them in those departments. But if the secondary holds up and Brock Purdy does decent, Chris McCaffrey stays healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to the Super Bowl. Next, we have the Seahawks with Geno Smith going back as the starter. Sam Howell as the backup. I think it's a pretty trash quarterback room, in my opinion. The Kenneth Walker, pretty much the only good running back in that room. I feel like these other two, Zach Charbonnet, and I don't even know how to say his last name. I'm not going to try. This running back, they need another running back. Next season or in the offseason, they definitely need to add more help there. DK Metcalf, he's going to get extended, I think. Tyler Lockett, I think this is his last season with Seattle. And Jackson Smith Inaba, I'm not really sure how to say his name. He's coming off of a great rookie season, so I see him doing pretty decent. Noah Fant is the starter. Fast tight end. Not great hands, personally. But, he's in that Evan Ingram stage. Evan Ingram was, he had potential. Then he was, not good. Then, he broke out. That may be the same thing for Noah Fant. But right now, he's, in that middle stage. I think this is a pretty below average offensive line. But Seattle, Dallas, the Raiders, all these teams typically, no matter who you put, they always have a pretty decent offensive line. Except the ending years of Seattle of the Russell Wilson era. For their defense, they have Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy, Jonathan Hackins, Leonard Williams. This is a pretty solid defensive line. For the linebackers, though, outside of Jerome Baker, I don't really see them having any, crazy good linebackers. They also have Rick Woolen, Trey Brown, Devon Witherspoon, Kobe Bryant. They have a pretty solid, I would say, secondary, but also young. So we'll see how I would say they're very good tackling corners. But, Rick Woolen is definitely one of the best corners in the league, for sure. So, this team has a lot to prove. I feel like if their offense is consistent, this is a pretty solid team. But, it's just up to that. They also have Jason Myers, Michael Dixon. I think that's pretty below average for the special teams. Okay. Next, we have the Denver Broncos here. And I will say, this team has a lot to prove. Has a lot to prove in all areas. This team got a lot of attention for the wrong reasons the last 2 years. And I think, personally, this will be a sleeper team. We have Bo Nix, rookie quarterback. Okay, first off, we're not going to go to the Super Bowl. Put that out there. We're not going to go to the Super Bowl. If we even get near the playoffs, it will be a wild card, one and done. But I would still be okay with that, because as long as we have a winning record, that would be okay. Bo Nix, rookie, he's not really going to be putting up anything crazy up until, I think, next season. Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Esteen, Blake Watson. This is a great running back room. Great running back room. I would feel confident with pretty much any of these running backs in there. Obviously, I would still want Javonte and Jaleel as the main two. But if I see the third and fourth string go in there, I'm not going to be worried. This receiving core has, I think, underrated potential. You have Cortland Sutton. You have Josh Reynolds coming off of injury, wanting to prove himself. Marvin Mims Jr., he's going to be our returner, and, he's just going to be our slot. But then you have Troy Franklin, rookie, Devon Vell, rookie. So it's a lot of veteranism and a lot of rookie, and kind of in the middle. So I think this receiving core has underrated potential, like I said. You also have Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich, Lucas Kroll, Nate Atkins. Each one of these tight ends has its own, I would say, specialty. Greg Dulcich is like a first and 10, type of first and 10 type of tight end. And Adam Troutman is more of a third down back, red zone, and Lucas Kroll is like second, third down, and red zone. So pretty good variety, I'd say, with our tight end group. I think we have a great offensive line for the first time in a while, outside of our center, Luke Wattenberg. I'm not a fan of him, but Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Quinn Miners, Mike McGlinchey, solid 4. We have a pretty solid offensive line, slightly above average in my opinion. For our defense, we have Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Baron Browning, Nick Bonito, Alex Singleton, Justin Stranad, Cody Barton, Drew Sanders, second year, and then we have Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis, rookie, and then obviously the GOAT, Pat Surtain. And unfortunately, I think outside of him, we don't really have any corners. We do have PJ Locke, JL Skinner, and I mean, I think our secondary is our weakest point on this team. So I really hope we get some help pretty much as soon as possible because this team needs it in the secondary. I don't have faith in the secondary outside of, Pat Surtain's going to do his thing. You don't have to worry about Pat Surtain, but, I think the secondary is going to have problems. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but this is the weakest part of our team. So now we're going to go on to picks of the week. First is the Thursday night game with the Chiefs and the Ravens. I am going to go with the Chiefs on this one. Typically with two good teams, it doesn't really matter who you pick because it's the first game of the season. The only reason I'm picking the Chiefs is just because I think they're going to have a lot more strategy. They did just say that Hollywood Brown is not going to play. So it's going to be a lot of help, I would say, on Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Mecole Hardman, and Travis Kelce. But you know what? I think I'm going to end up choosing the Ravens. I think I am. I think the Ravens are going to come out here, and shock people. Especially I want to see what they're going to do with Derrick Henry, And I don't know. I have faith. I think the Ravens are going to win. The Chiefs is a smarter pick, but I do think I'm going to end up changing my original selection and move that to the Ravens. We have the Packers and the Eagles. I'm going to have the Eagles on that on Friday night. I just think the Eagles are a more balanced team than the Packers. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm not also on the Packers bandwagon. I don't really see where all the hype is coming from, so I'm picking the Eagles there. With the Steelers and the Falcons, I am going to go with the Falcons. I think they're just a slightly better team. I don't have a lot of faith in that Steelers offense, personally. And next we have the Vikings and the Giants. This is so difficult, man. Man, this is two pretty terrible teams. I think I'm going to have to pick I think I'm going to pick the Vikings, man. I think I'm going to have to pick the Vikings just barely. And for the Dolphins and Jaguars, I have the Dolphins winning that. I would kind of be surprised if they lost to the Jaguars. Patriots and Bengals, I'm picking the Bengals all day. There should be no reason the Bengals lose. I'm picking the Bills over the Cardinals. If the Bills lose against the Cardinals, that just shows you the amount of players and depth and talent the Bills are lacking. Colts, Texans, I'm picking the Colts. I'm picking the Texans. I think the Colts are going to be a solid team this year, but I'm picking C.J. Stroud over a veteranized 1 year over Anthony Richardson's 6 weeks. So yeah, and plus additions with Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. Come on. I'm picking the Bears over the Titans. I feel like this is gonna be a close game, kind of underrated game. I feel like that should be a pretty entertaining game. Saints and the Panthers. I'm picking the Saints. I think the Saints are gonna slightly beat them. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers beat the Saints though. Raiders and the Chargers. I honestly think the Chargers are gonna win this game. A lot of people have the Raiders, I feel like, winning this, but I just feel like the Chargers are gonna win this game. Broncos and the Seahawks. I'm picking the Broncos, man. I think the Broncos, outside of that secondary, are going to do really good. And I think that they're just a little bit, they're going to play with a chip on the shoulder. They have nothing to lose type. So I feel like they're just going to put up a great game plan. And revenge, obviously. The Commanders and the Buccaneers, I do have the Bucs winning that. I just feel like they're a more complete team right now. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders beat the Bucs. Cowboys and the Browns, I do have the Cowboys winning that. The Browns, could win this game. Could very much easily win this game. I just feel like the Cowboys have a little bit more chemistry already with some of these players. And we'll see. I have the Lions over the Rams. I just don't see the Rams winning that game. And the 49ers and the Jets. Man, what a great Monday night matchup. This is a straight 50-50 in my eyes. But I think the 49ers are a little bit more developed. They have a better roster. I'm going to go with the 49ers. So with that being said, I know this is going to be a lot longer of a video. Keep in mind, guys, next week's and all the weeks after that are not going to be as long as this video. This is just a week roster review and week 1 picks. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully your team wins, unless you're a Chiefs fan, like I say. So yeah, actually, let's just do that. There we go. So I will see y'all most likely next Wednesday again. And hopefully, my pick percentage is going to be better this year. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and I will see y'all next week.